the keycard pressed against my name, the night the elevator forgot which floor was ours. At 9:16 p.m., I found the room key by accident, the way people discover weather, suddenly and without permission. It slid out of the back pocket of Owen's jeans when I shook them the way you shake the day from fabric. The card landed face up on the counter, a neat little rectangle with a gold skylark embossed over the words "The Lark." Along the edge, a black strip reflected the kitchen light like it was trying to keep a secret but didn't know how. Someone had written, on the sleeve in a thin hotel pencil, careless and precise at once, as if the person who wrote it believed in gravity and promises equally. I stood with the washer door open, one chilled forearm inside the cylinder, and the rest of my body wondering whether hands deserve a vote. The key was warm where my thumb pressed it. Warmth tells on people. I set the jeans on the machine, and the machine caught the whisper of a cinnamon stick I'd left in a pot earlier, my attempt at making ordinary domesticity sound like a plan. Owen had left at 8 with the kiss you give a life you trust to stay put, a quick, accurate thing at the corner of my mouth that admitted more than it promised. Wrap toast, he said, two words that make a celebration feel like an administrative task. A few notes. Don't wait. He knows how to talk calendar even when the night is not a meeting. We don't usually use a hotel pencil. I didn't text him. The room key did not need witnesses to believe in its purpose. The Lark is 5 blocks away if the city minds its crosswalks. The air outside was the kind of cold that doesn't apologize and doesn't need to. In the lobby, a pianist was performing the absence of blame. Brass learned restraint against the walls. The concierge looked up with the calm of someone who counts confessions like tips and never spends either in front of you. I said I was meeting a friend and gave the elevator my reflection to carry. The button for PH asked for permission I did not have. I pressed 11 instead and walked the last floor because the body needs to accomplish smaller things before it admits to larger ones. Upstairs, the carpet hushed all the unnecessary sentences I had been rehearsing. Door numbers glowed in the low light like they were shy about telling you where you were. I passed a housekeeping cart with 2 robes folded like decisions. Voices moved under doors, sometimes laughter, sometimes a rustle you would only call a secret if you felt entitled to nomming other people's choreography. The hallway bent once and then became itself again. A silver plaque read "Penthouse," private with the kind of font that wins arguments without shouting. The door to PH2 sat at the end with a small red eye waiting to be charmed. I held the keycard near it because that is what you do when a rectangle of plastic asks to be believed. The lock sighed, a sound old houses make when they forgive you for something too quickly. A corridor the color of champagne led to a second door, and then a room the color of money took over. The city opened at the windows like it had opinions. A jacket I'd never seen before hung on the back of a bar stool, black and somehow more honest for being on furniture. Music hummed at the edge of hearing, the low, private kind that expects a mouth will join it. The bedroom door was shut. In the mirror over the minibar, 2 shapes reflected where no one stood. I opened the bedroom door the way people open weather, gently, as if the rain might thank you. The bed was unmade in a careful way. A glass with the suggestion of fingerprints clung to the bedside table. Owen stood at the far window with his jacket off and his shirt sleeves rolled to an argument. Behind him, the city practiced being a confession. He didn't turn. He didn't need to. Bodies have a room for recognition that does not share halls with other functions. I was going to leave the key in the wash and claim it made a mistake, I said. The words crossed the carpet and removed their shoes before they reached him. Your voice makes a lot of promises, he said. He turned then, not startled, and looked at my hand where the key hung between index and middle finger. His mouth did an almost smile, the way a body picks up a glass it isn't sure it deserves. "Does PH2 stand for something complicated?" I asked. "It stands for pretending you can breathe higher than you live," he said, "and for bad timing. And who else in this elevation study is learning to breathe with you tonight?" "Raphael," he said. The name was a slow coin on the tongue. Sound. He listens to the wrong things beautifully. We stared at each other like an argument had decided to be a room, and we were measuring it. Behind him, the sky wore the last light like a trick. The bed made a neat invitation of its wrinkles. I touched the key against my palm and imagined it understanding nothing about this. "Are you sleeping with him?" I asked. The carpet did not object to my position. Carpets rarely do. "Not yet," he said, and didn't look away. I brought my mouth. We stood a breath closer because distance can become its own lie. "You always want surprise to prove something kindness can't," I said. "You're beautiful when you believe intimacy is a sport and honesty is an off-season. And you're beautiful when you referee," he said, "which is unfair and extremely useful." "I won't be your security guard," I said, "and I won't be your docent through other people's exhibitions." "What do you want then?" he asked. "Not later now." The room took an inventory of us. The music inside the speakers held its breath. My mouth thought it knew. My hand did. I stepped forward and lifted his wrist and placed the keycard between skin and pulse and held it there until the plastic warmed enough to admit it was out of its depth. He closed his eyes like the room was learning a new language and he wanted his mouth to listen. "Come home with me," I said, "or let me stand here and watch you practice failure with someone who isn't me. Those are the only choices tonight can survive." He opened his eyes and exhaled my name and nothing else. He was too close for the room to pretend to be anything but arithmetic. I set the card on the dresser and smoothed the sleeve he had rolled too high, not to fix him, but to recognize the part of his arm that still pretended to be innocent. His hands came to my waist with the kind of caution that is either apology or invitation depending on what you do next. I answered him with slowness. Not a saint's slowness, not a coward's, the kind that makes a body memorize itself again. My mouth found his and his opened not with hunger but with relief, a breath that finally remembered where it was supposed to go. Our hips learned there was still choreography not designed by regret. The bed agreed to be ordinary furniture and nothing more. We stood. We leaned. We raised one shirt hem only as high as respect could keep up with. I did not want to own him. I wanted him to know how thoroughly I recognized him in this room we didn't deserve. His neck is a history I can read blindfolded. I grazed it with the side of my mouth, and his hands tightened as if asking a question a better man might answer incorrectly. The room thought about becoming a witness, and then minded its business. He was warm under my hands, and the sound he made was the sound of a word that has finally learned its vowels. We didn't dismantle each other. We did not make anything the hotel would need to clean beyond its job. We were careful. We were uncareful with purpose. His thigh found mine and my palm flattened against the small of his back where his body keeps its good secrets. He whispered stay like it had more letters and my mouth wrote yes like it was allowed to. After, which here means before we did anything unforgivable, he pressed his forehead to mine and said my name twice. The city found new lights. The speakers remembered to breathe. We let our bodies pretend exhaustion was satisfaction and then stepped away in the shape of a decision. "I want you where you live," I said. "Not because forgiveness is cheap, but because this is expensive and we can't afford the financing." He picked up his jacket and smoothed it the way people smooth animals they intend to keep. "He's not you," he said. "He's an echo. You're the sound. So am I supposed to be flattered or furious? I asked. Yes, he said, and smiled the kind of smile that gets men into rooms and out of them equally. I pocketed the key card. He didn't ask me to return it. We took the elevator down together because the stairs would have felt like a retreat. In the mirror, our faces looked like they had shared a secret in opposite directions. A woman in perfume and diamonds pressed herself into the far corner with the compassion of someone who knows there are many kinds of emergencies you cannot explain in an elevator. Back on the street, the night had joined the argument. Wind said hurry. Street lamps said look. My hand found his where pockets were not available, and the grip we allowed ourselves was the grip you give a hand you've held hundreds of times that still asks to be chosen. At home, the apartment smelled like cinnamon that had given up on winning and decided to wait for a second chance. We sat on the edge of the counter and split what I had warmed earlier, because sweetness does not owe dignity anything. He ate like a man paying attention. He watched my mouth when I wasn't talking and when I was. He rolled the hotel belt sleeve I'd smuggled out like a talisman I did not admit I had taken and read the hotel's name with a mouth that refused to pretend. We'll have to talk, he said. In daylight, I know. Daylight, I said, and sentences with subjects and verbs. And maybe fewer metaphors about internships for desire, he said. He smiled. I did. The kitchen tried to figure out if we were going to turn off the lights together or in shifts. We didn't do anything dramatic with our bodies in our kitchen. We did the kind of careful that understands the cost of imprecision. My thumb drew the line of his jaw like an underline. His fingers slid under the back of my shirt like a consultation. The kiss we permitted ourselves was thick enough to count, thin enough to save the right amounts for morning. He makes a sound when he comes up for air that is not a gasp and not a word. And every time it convinces me, we still speak the same language even when we use it badly. He showered while I pretended not to count the minutes. He came out clean in our towel, not theirs, and left a comet trail of steam that apologized to nothing. I took the keycard from my pocket and lay it on the table next to my phone. He watched me do it and didn't look away. Keep it, he said, as a bad story we can afford to own. I'm better at owning you, I said, but I'll keep it because ownership is not the same as possession. He laughed in a way that didn't ask to be forgiven and didn't need to be. He pulled on sweatpants that believe in mercy and a t-shirt that didn't know about hotels. I turned off the oven's small, orange, useless light. We stood in the thin dark where truth always pretends it is exhausted, and decided the bed could hold us without needing to be convinced. We slept the kind of sleep that has terms and conditions. We woke with mouths oriented toward coffee and apologies. The keycard waited on the table like a witness who had decided to be discreet. He reached for it, then for me, then for the mug, and prioritized correctly on the third try. We should tell the truth about him, he said, morning-voiced. We will, I said. We'll have to figure out if the truth is a guest you invite or a tenant you evict. Your metaphors are expensive, he said, and kissed me in the forehead punctually. I'll pay later. Later will be a hallway with sunlight that refuses to negotiate. Sentences we owe each other even when we'd rather owe a hotel our silence. Later will be the list we keep taped inside the cabinet with the spices. The one that says a few things that make us almost decent at this, and a few things that make us hungry. Later will be the argument we try to have only once. But for a morning we did not deserve. We got to be the men who put a key on a table and decided the door it belonged to was not the door we would walk through today. I slid the key into the junk drawer with the screws that fit nothing else and the coupons we will never remember in time. The drawer closed with the soft precision of an object that knows about promises. He put on his coat, the honest one, and waited for me at the threshold of our door like he wasn't sure how soon I'd forgive him and was determined to give me the time anyway. I touched his mouth with mine in a way that acknowledged the cost of last night and the interest it would accrue and still qualified as interest in the other sense. The elevator wrote our names backward. I didn't mind. I can read backward. I can read forward too. The day did not ask for my permission to begin any more than the night had asked for my permission to end. On the sidewalk, the city pretended to be our witness again. I let it. Our hands stayed separate until the corner, then consulted, then agreed. We went left toward the bakery that believes butter is the same thing as faith. There are worse lies to tell yourself at 9 to 10 in the morning, after admitting your body remembers how to say yes to a man in a room that was not built for you. We do not become saints. We become late. We become careful. We become something like a miracle you can still hear when the piano stops playing in the lobby. We become men who place a key in a drawer and decide that the door it unlocks can stay exactly where it is, 3 blocks and a few thin lies away, until time and weather and the better version of us decide whether locks deserve to learn our names again.